All right, good morning, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us on this very windy Wednesday morning. Today's topic, we're going to be talking about being emotionally wise at work, which is an interesting title, and it may make you think, well, what does that really mean? Well, we're going to dig into that. Before we do, for those who are not joining us live but are watching the recording, just want to let you know we are having a few technical difficulties this morning. So Zetta's running the slides, and I am talking. So it's going to be, a little bit different, but we will try to make it work. And also, I shared a little earlier, if you hear a very loud noise while I'm speaking, today's garbage day in my neighborhood, and I just heard a garbage can fall over about 5 minutes ago. So everything's okay. Everything's fine. We just go with the flow, right? So let's go ahead and start talking about emotions. And so this is a rhetorical question that you have up on the screen here. How do you feel about the topic of emotions at work? Some people may say, well, I don't really care. Other people may think, yeah, I don't like to talk about emotions, whether I'm at work or home. Don't care at all. Don't want to talk about it. But emotions are really important. And as leaders, we need to be able to understand emotions in ourselves and emotions in our team members. So we can go ahead and look at the next slide. There we go. Okay, so as supervisors, we need to be prepared to face the challenge of dealing with emotions in the workplace effectively. Many of you may have heard of IQ, or the intelligence quotient. And that really, it's an assessment on our human intelligence. Our intelligence pretty much is what it is. But when we talk about being emotionally wise at work, we can also consider, you may have heard of it called EQ, or your emotional intelligence. And EQ actually affects how we manage behavior, how we navigate social complexities, and make personal decisions, hopefully for positive results. So Zed, if you can click, there's something else that comes up. So the ability to recognize and understand emotions in yourself and in others truly is a key trait for successful leaders. So what we want to do on our next slide is kind of have a quick overview of what EQ is. And EQ is made up of 4 core skills, which we'll see those in a moment. Oh, I'm so sorry. I skipped this slide. Sorry, Zetta. The cool thing, let me backtrack, apologies. The cool thing about emotions and your EQ is that these are skills that can be learned and improved. Whereas your IQ, pretty much your IQ is what it is. Your emotional intelligence, you can learn. You can learn to be more emotionally wise. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at the next slide. We'll have a quick overview of what we mean about emotional intelligence, or EQ. There are 4 core skills when it comes to your emotions. And you can see from the graphic, some are personal competence and some are social. And then you have what I see and what I do. So the first one we want to quickly look at is self-awareness. This is your ability to be able to perceive your own emotions in the moment and understand your tendencies across situations. Then we look over and we see self-management. And this is what happens when you choose to act or you choose not to act on your emotions. Then next to social competence, you've got social awareness. And this is a foundational skill. This is key. This is your ability to accurately recognize or interpret emotions in other people and understand what is occurring with them in that very moment. And as leaders, this is key. We need to be able to recognize emotions in other people. And it's more than just recognizing the emotions, but it's understand what's occurring in them at that moment. And then, of course, relationship management, the other key part. This is what we actually do with relationships. It's using your awareness of your own emotions and the emotions of others to make sure that you have successful interactions. It's really the bond that you build with these folks, and whether they're your employees or your colleagues or family, it's the bond that you build with these people over time. And so self-awareness obviously is where we need to start. We need to be aware of our own emotions and our own tendencies and how we act on those. And then once we can kind of better understand ourselves, then we can start to better understand those with whom we work. So now let's go ahead and look at the next slide. Leaders who are not emotionally wise tend to act out in stressful situations because they're not able to manage their own emotions. So this could be things like yelling or blaming, or being passive aggressive, which that is just not good for anybody. What it ends up doing is creating an even more stressful environment for your team, for your colleagues, for your family. Leaders who aren't emotionally wise also will ultimately inhibit collaboration, because when you think about it, if your employees are nervous around you, are nervous about speaking up and sharing their ideas because out of fear of how you may respond, they're not going to speak up at all. And then leaders who aren't emotionally wise are unable to address situations that have a lot of emotion that goes along with them. They have difficulty recognizing conflict and a lot of difficulty dealing effectively with conflict resolution. On the flip side, the next slide, we'll talk about leaders who are emotionally wise at work. And this is hopefully what everybody will get to at some point. Leaders who are emotionally wise, they foster safe environments for their team, for their colleagues, for the entire organization, because your employees are going to feel more comfortable. And if your employees feel more comfortable, they're more likely to voice their opinions and their thoughts, which leads to collaboration. And with collaboration, it's not just a catchphrase or the buzzword. It's truly part of the culture with leaders who are emotionally wise. They want to collaborate with other people, and that's where we can be our best. Emotionally wise leaders leverage emotions for the good of the organization. Think about it. Leaders often, and they should be, are change agents. And so being emotionally wise, if we are aware of how others will react emotionally, while we can't see into the future, as you get to know your employees better and really think through how they are as far as their emotions go, you'll be able to anticipate how they will react to change. And then you can plan appropriate ways to introduce and carry out change. Hopefully that makes sense. That's a lot of words all jumbled up together, but being able to anticipate how your team will respond, will react, will help you know how to better help them get through difficult situations or just change. Change may not always be a bad thing, but it will help move them through that. And then leaders who are emotionally wise don't take things personally. They're able to forge ahead without worrying about their own egos. I hate to be wrong. I will admit it. I hate being wrong. However, being emotionally wise, you're able to say, you know what? Hey, maybe I wasn't, dead on that specific situation. Maybe you guys came up with a better idea than I did. And that is okay. That's fostering collaboration. That's why we have teams that we work with. We don't work just individually. So you can't take things personally. So in today's environment, being emotionally wise is more important than ever. And Azetta, you can go ahead and pull up you can click it again and we'll just pull it up. It'll be easier. Thanks. So whether you are working at home and working remotely and your team is, or whether you're still working on campus or in your office, wherever the office may be, things are different, and we know that. So the left-hand side of this screen, especially for employees who are no longer commuting to work, we're working from home. I have seen this on social media, and it's a lot of jokes really, but all over the place. The plan was to use my normal commute time to, now I'll be able to pick up new hobbies, or I'm going to learn a foreign language, or I can, be the world's best baker, or, my favorite one, I'm going to get fit, because now I have those extra, an extra hour in the day where I'm not having to drive to and from work to do all this stuff. So this is going to be great. Well, in reality, homebound employees, research is showing homebound employees are logging 3 hours more than before. 3 hours of work more than before. Now, obviously, that may not be true for everybody, and I certainly hope that it's not. The point here is that our employees are now feeling more overworked. They may be feeling more stressed out. And honestly, a lot of them are eager to get back to the office. And I know that's true for several folks on my team. Everybody's different. So some of the people on my team are saying, you know what, I'm doing okay working from home. It works out well for me. And then there are others who don't. And that's where being an emotionally wise leader, and I'm not saying that I am off the charts emotionally wise, but that's where keeping emotions in mind is really helping me to be able to help my team. Things are just so different. So this is something where you need to think about it. How is your team really doing in today's environment? How are you really doing in today's environment? And so emotionally wise relationship management tips is what comes up on this next slide. As leaders, and before we go into those tips, I want to say, as leaders, relationship management is our job. And as we talked about a few slides before, relationship management is your ability to use the awareness of your own emotions and the emotions of other people to manage your interactions successfully. Leaders who can manage relationships effectively will see the benefit with connecting with people. So some of the strategies listed here for relationship management: be open and curious. And if you were able to join one of these sessions a week ago, we talked about coaching with your employees, and we talked about being curious. So talk to your employees, ask them questions, basic questions. How are you doing? Be curious to how they're doing. Avoid giving mixed signals. Be straightforward. Be transparent in your communication, like we talked about last week. You need to be able to build trust. Your employees need to be able to trust you, and you need to be able to trust your employees. Have an open door policy. And we've talked about that in some of these sessions over the last few weeks, an open door policy. That doesn't mean that you have to be available 24/7 to your employees. Otherwise, you'll never get your job done. But having an open door policy means letting them know you're available, while you may have to set some parameters around that. Maybe you're available during such and such hours of the day to talk. That's okay, but that way they know that you are making yourself available for them. Acknowledge other people's feelings. Everybody has different personalities from the next person. And we need to realize that just because I feel one way, it doesn't mean that my colleagues, my employees, or my supervisor feels the same way. So acknowledge the other person's feelings. When we're making decisions, explain your decision as a leader. Sometimes it's very easy to just make a decision and say, here's what we're doing. Now, I understand as a leader, sometimes you have to do that. Sometimes you just have to make a decision, but explain it rather than just saying, here's the decision, we're done. Feedback. We talked about coaching and feedback when we talked about transparency and communication. Make sure your feedback is direct and constructive. That goes back to being open with your employees. And then those tough conversations, we can't avoid them. Now, it's a good idea to keep in mind, how do you think your employee may react to a tough conversation? That's what an emotionally wise leader does. Anticipates how your employee may respond, and that way you're able to keep the conversation going in a positive frame, even if it is a tough conversation that you have. So we have one more slide to show, talking about being emotionally wise at work. Take advantage of this situation. When I mean this situation, this remote work situation, or if you're still in your office, just the less folks being there, take advantage of it to be able to build solid relationships with your team. This is a great time to implement maybe one-on-ones with your team members if you have not done that before. Really get to know them. Talk to them, obviously about work, but talk to them about themselves as well. And let them get to know you. So, and I'm not saying on a major personal level, but you need to know each other so that way you can better support each other. And that has to do with emotions. Over time, this will lead to a more emotionally wise team. But as leaders, it starts with us. And we need to be able to show that to our employees, that we truly care, that we're here to help them, and that we understand we're all different, but we all want to come together for the good of the organization, the good of your team, the good of that person. And then, as always, our last slide, we have the different areas of HR that may be helpful to you always, but particularly during this time. Financial well-being, health and wellness, training and development, and then, of course, work life. So with that, I hope that you enjoyed this information. We actually, in HR training and development, have a class that is all about emotional intelligence. It's called EQ. Now, that class is actually by request only. We generally do it with actual teams and groups of people. And there is a book that goes along with it that also has an assessment in it. So you can actually take an EQ assessment to see, well, where am I right now as far as my emotional quotient? And then where do I want to be? Because remember, these are skills that can be learned. Just depending on whatever you score on an EQ assessment, it doesn't mean it has to stay there. We can always grow that. So I just want to let you know, if you've got questions about that, you can email train@uky.edu. And with that, we thank you for joining this session. Hope you have a great day.